Isang mapagpalang umaga po sa inyong lahat. This orientation and pilot implementation and establishing home learning spaces initiated by the External Partnership Service under the sterling leadership of Undersecretary Tonesito Umali is laudable. And I'm really so happy that the Bureau of Learning Delivery forms part of this endeavor. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought unprecedented changes and challenges in the delivery of learning. It required a transition in the learning delivery landscape from the usual face-to-face learning to distance learning. The pandemic consistently rendered face-to-face learning still not possible, especially for those schools that are not identified as pilot implementers of the limited face-to-face. So there's no other way to deliver learning for learning to continue if not through remote or distance learning, where our learners are still ensured that they're able to master the learning competencies even within the confines of their homes. Despite the swift shift in the delivery of learning from the traditional face-to-face learning to distance learning, the Department of Education remains steadfast in its mandate to continue with the delivery of quality basic education amidst the uncertainties. It's going to sustain its gains and build on good outcomes over a year of implementing distance learning. So, with all the schools delivering distance learning for more than a year due to COVID-19, parents are actually tasked with fulfilling the critical role of supporting their children's education while learning from home. So today, I am tasked to talk on the importance of establishing home learning spaces relevant to the conduct of home-based learning and the impact of providing conducive learning spaces in the achievement of learning competencies. Beyond physical space, effective learning experiences begin with parents and children who view learning as positive. A home learning space has been talked about or a talk of the town among parents, among learners, among teachers during the new normal virtual Brigada Escuela. It is upon the directives of the Department of Education, particularly DepEd Order number 12, series of 2020, to find ways for learning to continue amidst the threat and uncertainties of COVID-19 pandemic. One of the highlights of the DepEd order is the encouragement of all Filipino households to create a learning space or study area in preparation for the coming school year, and that parents and their children were advised to prepare for the blended type of learning, which will employ different learning delivery modalities, such as the modular learning, online distance learning, TV, and that of radio-based instruction. In this setup, the teacher and the learners do not necessarily have to meet in person. Instead, classes are conducted online and in remote locations. Classes meet via online platforms based on identified schedules. Hence, creating a learning space at home is highly encouraged. Ang bawat mag-aaral ay kinakailangang mabigyan ng pagkakataon para maipagpatuloy ang kanilang pag-aaral sa anumang paraan. And so I mentioned earlier that in the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan, there's a menu of learning delivery modalities offered to our learners. Everything is the choice is everything is dependent on the context of the learner. So it can be modular, it can be online, it can be through the TV or radio-based instruction. And we're just so happy that we're able to establish our own DepEd TV channel. I'd like to share you 5 proposed actions to guide the transformation of education systems, and this is what research say about it. But first and foremost, I'd like to emphasize the need to really establish a strong home and school partnership. And if I may include, it has to be home, school, community partnership. So research shows that partnerships between families and schools and staff are essential to supporting our learners, with benefits manifesting in multiple ways. And this include improve attendance, improve participation in or improve accomplishment of learning tasks, and of course, increase student achievement. Learners are likely to perform better when the school and families work together. So this is what our parents and that of our schools really need to remember. So strong, trusting relationships between families and school staff are also key to ensuring that programs and services are aligned to the needs and are accessed by families. These are lessons on family engagements that have emerged from conversations with special educators across the country, as shared in the research. So one is distance learning presents opportunities to forge stronger connections with families. Insights gained through strong connections with families can support innovations that better meet student and family needs. And the third one is with training and support, families can reinforce learning and skill development in the home. And if you remember, there were a lot of orientation activities that were conducted for parents, if only to ensure that they are able to be of help to their children. So, while our learners are learning from home because of this pandemic, nagkaroon ng bagong mukha ang ating mga tahanan. So, the homes have become the school of our children. So the home learning environment is the combination of everything the school and the family need to do, and the spaces that the child has to access, because they affect these learning spaces, or the learning environment actually affect the child's development and learning. This includes the opportunities of the child to play and interact as much as possible with books. That's why even while they're learning from home, books have to be made available to them, manipulatives, some other devices that they need for learning, and everyday experiences to help them make sense of the world. So the home learning space does not necessarily pertain to a physical structure itself, but the overall climate provided at home for learning. No matter where our learners are, our schools, particularly the teachers, implement innovative strategies to reach out to parents, to reach out to teachers, or to learners in the new learning environment. And these are done through home visits, through direct phone calls, video conferencing, and even text messaging. These innovative strategies to communicate with parents and learners are very important, because while our learners are learning from home, the parents actually have become the learning facilitators. And it's really necessary for the parents to regularly coordinate with teachers and that of the school. But if the school does not hear any from the parents, then it's really necessary to reach out and find out what's happening doon sa pag-aaral ng mga bata sa kanilang mga bahay. Kinakailangan huwag kalimutang mangumusta kung ano na ang nangyayari sa pag-aaral ng mga bata. The learning space should be a space that motivates and stimulates the users, meaning the learners, to learn and supports their learning activities. But the learning space, of course, is dependent on the family situation and the living conditions of the learner and that of his family. Siyempre, meron yung maraming spaces na pwedeng pagpilian. Maraming din yung tinatawag natin na one-room affair na kinakailangan doon sa isang room na ando doon na lahat, kinakailangan pa rin na ihanap kung saan pwedeng pupwesto yung bata para mag-aaral. So it's important that our teachers bring on ideas to help our parents and even our learners choose where they have to be to position themselves to accomplish learning tasks. And where possible, there really has to be a clear demarcation between the space where our learners do their schoolwork, a space where they can play and do some of their leisure activities, and of course, family matters. So what makes up a conducive learning spaces? Even in a small home, you can create a designated space for learning. This can be in the sala, this can be in the kitchen, this can be in a corner of a room, in the bedroom, where you can eliminate, or it may just be a desk or a chair put on a corner. So kinakailangan meron talagang space na kung saan pwedeng mag-aaral ng bata. Unfortunately, not everyone has a designated room for learning. So it's important that we have to get creative and find ways to make space mobile if needed. So pwede namang pabago-bago kung saan yung pwede on that particular day. Pwedeng gumamit ng mga folding, alam mo yung mga folding chairs, folding tables. Nung bata nga ako, ang gamit ko pagplantsahan. Kasi yun lang yung lamesa available actually. So learning spaces should include all the things that the child or the learner needs for them to have a successful home learning experience. And these are their SLMs, the self-learning modules, the learning activity sheets, the textbooks, because the textbooks are also provided to the children, the learning packets that are provided also by our schools, their devices, and as much as possible, and the other materials learning materials that they need, like their pencils, their ball pens, and that of their papers. And it's important that all this should be within the reach of our learners. Learning spaces can help build better relationships and communication between family members. The learners focus more on creativity rather than productivity. So these areas, meaning the learning spaces, actually can awaken the interest of our learners for learning. And as said by Scotland in 2020, the most important feature, though, are the interactions with people who provide the love, security, encouragement, conversation, and positive role models to help your child to thrive. So napaka-importante talaga yung presence ng bawat miyembro ng pamilya, yung importance of or should I say yung for parents making their child feel that they're also very much interested on what he's doing, and that they provide him encouragement and make that child feel how much he is being cared and loved by everyone in the family. That certainly counts so much. Even when our learners are learning from home, we create opportunities for our learners to construct knowledge by understanding new information, building on what they already know. So it's important to create an environment that ensures that learning is an active process where learners interact with their learning materials provided to them, learning materials that are available at home, that they also get the chance to interact with their teachers and even with other learners. So performance tasks are actually important as they are designed for our learners to perform, and it matters that the learning space be one that's going to allow him or allow her to perform such tasks. The constructivist theory has important implications in learning at home that could bring out learning potential. So it's contextual, that's taking into account the learner's understanding with what he sees at home. And as much as possible, this has to be supported by our teachers and learning facilitators. It has to be active, one that is engaging learners in learning activities that use analysis, debate, and criticisms, as of course opposed by just simply memorization, to receive and test information. It can be done actually between and among family members if the teacher or classmates cannot be there, certainly. And social, by using discussions, direct interaction with experts, with teachers, with peers, with family members, and team-based projects where possible. I always mention of where possible because that may just be possible for learners who are doing online distance learning. But for those who are doing modular learning, where they don't really have devices to communicate with other peers, to work with other peers, then certainly it would be difficult unless there's the chance that children within the neighborhood can come together and do their team-based projects. So let's talk about building home learning space for the Filipino learner. Where possible, we allow the learner to make his or her learning space. Maganda kung siya talaga, yung bata, ang pipili kung saan siya pwedeng magstay to accomplish his home learning task. They need to be encouraged to choose where they would like to set it up, and as much as possible, help them to ensure that that space is going to make them feel more comfortable. It's something that's familiar to them, and it's something that's inviting for them to accomplish their assigned learning tasks. If a child feels he has ownership over their space or his space, then he will be more motivated to use and care for it. Location is very necessary. Yes, it's so necessary. It's really so important while they are learning from home. It has to be one as much as possible that's quiet, one that is organized, one that is distraction-free area where the child can focus on his home learning task. Even in a small house, it would be great to assign a dedicated space. I mentioned this earlier. It may be in the kitchen, it may be in the dining room, it may be in the sala, it may be in the porch. Actually, that was my favorite place when I was a grade and high schooler. Doon po ako sa porch laging nag-aaral. And because it is where the learning takes place, it should meet the following essentials. And I mentioned some already. Quiet, has to be neat and clean. And let's try to encourage our learners to keep their learning space neat and clean. Organize, one that is away from distractions. School supplies or other learning materials needed by our learners need to be within reach. And should the child be using a laptop or any device, then there has to be an outlet for charging such a device, especially for those who are on online distance learning or on blended learning. It would also be best to include a possibility for the child to decorate his own space, because decorating the space would mean stimulating excitement and sense of ownership. So these essentials can help them develop routine, master self-regulation, and that of valuing learning. The other one that we have to consider is we need to ensure that the learning space has to be well lit. So the most effective learning spaces are those that are well lit. And let me share you what neuroscientists say about this. A neuroscientist explains how factors such as light and seating arrangements can affect students' cognitive performance. Daytime light exposure can boost learning. If possible, parents need to position the child's workplace near a sunny window or in a room that gets plenty of natural light. Natural light and other sources of blue light are shown to increase productivity, alertness, and focus in children, as well as well-being and creativity. In fact, a study of elementary students in the US found that kids who were exposed to more sunlight during the school day saw 26% higher reading outcomes and 20% higher math outcomes than children in less sunny rooms. So the more natural light, the more conducive the environment is for learning. So natural light from windows and doors can do wonders for livening up a space. So plus it saves, of course, energy and lowers the electricity bills. I remember even myself doing my assigned task under under the tree. So yun yung mga favorite spaces ko din when I was a little kid. Siyempre, pag nasa probinsya ka, marami talagang mga kahoy at hindi ka diretsong naiinitan. We also need to ensure that the learner is physically comfortable, more at ease. There has to be comfortable furniture. I mentioned about enough natural lighting, comfortable temperature na hindi naman masyadong mainit, and of course, proper ventilation. So make sure that the space is comfortable. This is what experts say. When ensuring your study space is comfortable, one of the most important things to keep in mind is ergonomics. Both your study table and chair should allow good posture. So I remember very well yung mga alaga ko sa bahay talaga habang nag-aaral sila. So kinakailangan i-correct mo din ang kanilang posture while they're seated. Importante dun yun sa kanila. And there's another one that we need to mention, that the chair should be comfortable, fit at the height of the desk, and allow the feet to rest on the floor. So kinakailangan talagang yung bata, we really need to ensure na komportable siya. So kung pwede, yung hindi alam mo, yung paa niya, dapat naka-rest siya sa floor. Kasi para more comfortable siya. Another thing that we have to consider is prioritize comfort. A learning space that is clutter-free and has uncomfortable furniture won't allow the child to get the most of his study at home. So parents need to do quality check on the furniture, on the chair, the table, the light. And kung pwede lang, meron tayong tinatawag na child proofing, because we need to ensure that the children are safe. And that will certainly also gives a lot of peace of mind. It's important that we have to ask our children if they are comfortable working or studying with it. And this is going to reduce chances of discomfort, such as getting back pains, leg cramps, and of course, eye strain. So once in a while you're so busy doing your household chores, you really have to have some check-ins and really find out what's happening or how does your child feel while doing his or her work. Moreover, if you have 2 or more kids or 2 children, ask them if it's all right for them to mix up. So you may consider actually an alternative usage depending on the class schedule. So perhaps you can innovate, and most probably in the morning, your child can, the other child can stay in this learning space, and there may be other learning space for the other child. And should the other one also like to stay in that space, then they can use it alternately. Organize your files. So it's important to keep things organized. So the files need to be organized, the schedule need to be organized, and routines should also be established. Importante po yun. So that as much as possible, I mentioned that earlier, that the learning materials need to be accessible whenever needed by our school children. If you do not have shelves at home, then boxes may be labeled to be more organized. I remember using karton nung bata ako at doon nakalagay ang aking mga kagamitan. Schedule the time of your children. So it's important that our learners get to familiarize themselves with the weekly home learning plan, their daily home learning tasks, and due dates. And it's not just actually for our learners, it's also for parents, because we expect you to be following up the activities of your learners. So you can hang the weekly home learning plan. So pwedeng ihang lang yan at may kasamang calendar para siguradong walang nakakalimutan na dates at walang makakalimutan na outputs na kinakailangang isubmit. Establish a routine. So getting into routine will increase the chances of the learner to accomplish their task. So remind them also to make their own study schedule. While there's the weekly home learning plan, they can always deviate if they feel. They can always postpone what they should be doing if if they don't feel like doing the work at that particular time. What's important is they're able to accomplish the task within the given time. So sundin ang routine sa bahay mula pagkagising hanggang sa matapos ang aralin sa maghapon. Nabanggit dito, no? At binanggit ko din kanina, maging flexible pa rin. And actually, yung mga activities are practically reflected in the weekly home learning plan. It's important na ihanda ang mga kagamitan ng anak sa pag-aaral, kagaya ng SLMs, the books, their papers, and of course some pencils and ball pens and all other needs of our learners. And this is one important reminder also. Igalang ang oras ng pag-aaral. Iwasan ang mga gawain at ingay na maaaring makagambala sa kanilang pag-aaral. No, I remember very well the student that I was able to interview last week, and she mentioned about the radio-based instruction that's being implemented. So ang sabi niya sa akin, so how do you manage learning? Sabi ko sa kanila. So ang sinagot nila sa akin is, habang nakikinig po ako sa radyo sa aking aralin, naghuhugas ako ng pinggan. So yun ang sabi niya. Keeping things organized is also another consideration. So it's important that we remind our children to organize their files, to schedule their time, and of course establish routines. So learning materials, as much as possible, need to be easily accessible whenever they're needed. So they have to be, when shelves are not available, they can be put in boxes, but these boxes should be properly labeled. I remember very well when I was in the grades, even in high school, I actually made use of the carton to keep my things. And then we need to remind the children, our learners, to familiarize themselves with their weekly home learning plan, their daily home learning tasks, and of course, due dates. If you remember, we have our weekly home learning plan, and the weekly home learning plan actually contains that schedule. That's not going to just be for the learners, it can also be utilized by our parents. So make sure na yung weekly home learning plan ay nakikita lang kung pwede lang ibitin ito, nakahang lang ito, kasama ang isang kalendaryo para at least we get reminded of the date. And the other one is we have to establish routine, help the child establish routine. So, ang sabi ng mga experts dito is getting into routine will increase the chances of the learner to accomplish their time. So, it's important that we have to remind them to make their own study schedule. So, kailangan sundin yung routine sa bahay mula pagkagising hanggang matapos yung aralin at maghapon. Ito naman ay nakalagay sa weekly home learning plan, pero gawin din itong flexible. Hindi naman strictly na kinakailangan sundin yung bawat oras, bawat minuto na nakalagay doon. Importante, ma-ensure natin na ang mga bata ay matatapos nila ang kanilang magawain. It's also important na ihanda ang mga kagamitan ng mga bata. So, just like their SLMs, their learning activity sheets, their textbooks, and then papers and pencil kasi kinakailangan nila yon in the accomplishment of their home learning task. And of course, we need to respect yung oras nila sa pag-aaral. Kinakailangang iwasan kung pwede lang, nabigyan sila ng mga household chores kung oras ng kanilang pag-aaral at iwasan din yung ingay kung maaari lang para we do not disturb them, especially as they do their work. You know, I remember very well a student that who I was able to interview last week, in my visit to schools. Maganda yung kanyang sharing kasi the parents and family members are really very supportive naman sa kanya. Pero ang magandang shinare niya is, and this is in line with the household chores, So sabi niya, ang maganda ma'am doon sa radio-based instruction, habang nakikinig ako sa radyo, sa aking aralin, sabi niya, pwede din, ang ginagawa ko din ay, pwede ko ring, ginagawa ko din yung nakapaghugas din ako ng pinggan. So yun yung sinabi niya. Unfortunately, there's one na na-share din ng school, na yung bata, halos hindi na niya, because it was reported that the child failed to submit his requirements, and it was found out that inuutusan pala yung anak para tumulong sa mga gawain. In fact, ang sabi nga nila, yung trabaho ng bata, parang nagbibilad ng palay, and certainly hindi nagagawa ng bata. So kung pwede lang, tayong mga parents, isipin din natin na nasa bahay sila dahil nag-aaral sila sa bahay at marami mga gawain na kinakailangan nilang tapusin. And yun yung suporta na gusto nating hingin sa kanila. Yun yung learning environment na kinakailangan meron sila. So, it's important that norms have to be set. So, let's help them keep their things organized and help them set learning norms, because our learners learn best in an organized, clean, and clutter-free learning space. We have emphasized a while back that the learning material should be organized, put on low shelves kung pwede lang para hindi sila, kumbaga, malayo sa disgrasya kasi baka mamaya aakyatin pa nila yon at delikado pa rin sa kanila. I mentioned about pwede rin ang karton kung walang shelves. Yun ang gamit ko nung ako ay nag-aaral. And importante din that we have to set the norms. For example, ano ba yung unang gagawin sa pagkagising? Actually, I mentioned earlier, nasa weekly home learning plan na to, what to do first, when to start, how long will it take, pwede bang kumain habang nag-aaral? So, kinakailangan pag-usapan doon. And then, ano ba yung technology rules natin? Especially for the children na gumagamit ng teknolohiya. So, isipin lagi na meron tayong tinatawag na recommended screen time. Meron din tayong tinatawag na 20-20 rule. So, kinakailangan, andun lagi tayo na magpaalala kung pwede lang sa ating mga anak. And then, How can you help as a parent? How can you help as a family member? How can you help as a learning facilitator? Pero sana hindi yung kayo yung gagawa ng trabaho nila, kundi tutulungan lang, ma-ensure lang na ginagawa nila at makapagbigay kayo ng guidance. So, here, kinakailangan pag-aralang mabuti talaga ang weekly home learning plan. At ito ay binigay ng guro sa inyo, bibigay ng guro sa inyo, ano? So the weekly home learning plan, as I mentioned earlier, serves as a guide for our learners, for our parents, for the whole week already. And then, kung pwede lang, sundin talaga yung schedule para siguro, dahil syempre yung mga teachers natin, when they prepare the weekly home learning plan, they made it sure talaga na yung time allotment, consider nila yon at sinisigurado nila na yung mga gawain, yung mga home learning tasks can really be accomplished, but it can also be made flexible. That's one thing that we have to remind you, my dear parents and teachers, na kinakailangan i-remind din sa ating mga magulang. Okay? And then, there's another thing na kinakailangan talagang iisipin lagi, ano? Yung mind your hats as a parent and as a teacher at the same time. So, importante po ito kasi we mentioned earlier that the parents are now playing a critical role in the lives of their children where they're learning from home. So, you're now the learning facilitators. It's a good thing if there's anyone other than you doing the task. So, kinakailangan laging isipin natin na kailangan din ihiwalay yung pagka magulang at pagka learning facilitator mo habang kausap mo din ang iyong anak. So as a parent and at the same time a teacher at home, you also have to be flexible. So you're not actually having a 6-hour school day like the regular class in school. And you cannot expect your children to be sitting the whole day. So that's not healthy. So kinakailangan, sabi nga nila, every after 2 hours, kinakailangan tumayo ka, mag-stretch out ka. Dahil it's never healthy that you're seated for a long time. And then another one is it's highly encouraged to have short breaks and also snack times. And then since online learning will mean more screen time to learners, so kinakailangan we really have to remind them of the recommended screen time. It's imperative also to schedule physical activities. In the weekly home learning plan, the teachers included that. And you may take that as guide. And I already mentioned about the screen time. I have to be emphatic on this because our learners usually fail to remind themselves of the recommended screen time. And of course, we would also like you, my dear parents, to be realistic. You're at home, and of course, you're expected to be doing other work, like the regular daily household chores. But it's important that you set a particular time also for your children. Kinakailangan po nila yung follow-up nyo. Kinakailangan po nila yung guidance po ninyo. Another consideration is the need to celebrate successes. Always make sure to reward or praise your child for their successes. It doesn't need to be something that's material. A simple great job, very good, that's great, can definitely uplift your children's morale. You really need to have a cabinet of affirming words and praises. And remember that it makes them feel motivated. It certainly boosts their emotional being and their morale. Acknowledging your child's effort certainly accelerates the learning process. I remember getting a hug and a 25 centavo every time I get a perfect score before. Dahil maliit lang ang bahay namin noon, at 3 kaming magkakapatid na nag-aaral pa lang. By the way, we are 6 in the family. May assigned na haligi ang bawat isa sa amin. And that haligi, yun doon namin i-display ang aming mga outputs, ang aming mga test papers, at nilagyan noon ng, kumbaga, ng, naglagay ng papa ko noon ng mga pako para lahat ay makikita. Doon namin isasabit noon yung mga test papers namin at yung mga outputs. So, kung mataas ang nakukuha, magaganda yung mga scores mo, marami kang mga very good, certainly mas madami ding incentive na kukuha ko noon kay Papa. So, ganun din po sa inyong mga anak. Ihanap kahit gaano kaliit ang lugar natin, pwede rin paghanap pa rin tayo ng paraan kung paano natin i-display yung mga outputs, yung mga outputs ng mga anak. Kasi pag nakikita naman nila na naka-display yun, and please do not forget to praise yung mga ginawa nila, kinakailangan mas lalo po silang ma-inspire. That's how my papa actually inspired me and my siblings to work harder and study harder. Tatakas kayo siguro no, kung bakit papa ang binabanggit ko. Kasi ang mama ko noon, she was a public school teacher. Napakaaga pa lang, dahil barrio teacher siya, napakaaga pa lang maalis na sa bahay. Darating na lang si mama pag medyo madilim-dilim na. So talagang wala siyang kukpagti lang yung oras na pwede niyang maibahagi sa amin. Dahil pagdating niya, syempre, lesson planning na naman ang gagawin noon ni mama. But certainly, hindi siya nagkulang to give us a lot of praises for everything that, good thing that we did. So, let's talk about the effect of home learning space to learning achievement and experiences. Let's see what researches, practices, and experience say about this. The Bureau of Learning Delivery conducted various program implementation reviews and focus group discussions with several stakeholders to gather feedback on the implementation of the distance learning delivery modalities in the light of the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan. Among those that were mentioned to be to the effects of the learning space to learners' achievement and that of experiences are as follows. So one is the increased engagement between parents and learners promotes stronger shared responsibility at home and the school in educating the young. Second one, ito yung pinag-usapan natin kanina, positive affirmations or compliments are given by the parents right away. So kung meron na pong nagawa ng mga anak nyo at na-display na niya po ito, so kinakailangan, kung hindi niya i-display, pwede din kayo po ang gagawa nun. So learning is reinforced with context, material, situations that are available at home. Integration of real-life problems to learning contents is also strengthened. Kaya nga doon sa mga performance tasks na ibigay sa mga anak ninyo at kinakailangan nila ng kasama para ma-accomplish ito, sana po lagi kayong available, you make yourselves available dahil malaking tulong po ito sa ating mga anak, and of course it lessens stress and that of anxiety. So, importante po na maglaan talaga ng oras para makapagpahinga din ang ating mga anak para hindi sila, para sa kanilang well-being po yon. Importante din po na kinakailangan tanungin natin tungkol sa kanilang mga aralin. Saan sila nahihirapan? Sa ano yung pinaka-activity nila na nagiging inspired sila, naging excited silang gawin nito. And remember, kasama ito sa mga tanong doon sa self-monitoring tool na kinakailangan gagawin ng mga bata, mga learners, mga parents also. Kasi merong space doon sa self-learning tool. Meron din kayong template na kinakailangan i-accomplish kung may kailangan pa siya sa kanyang pag-aaral, importante talaga yun. That we really have to know what are other things na kailangan nila. And then maglaan din ng oras para sa pag-aaral ng anak at oras upang mapag-usapan ang mga natutuhan ng mga anak sa natapos na aralin. Again, kasama po ito dun sa self-monitoring tool. Tinatanong talaga, ano bang natapos mo? Ano yung mga hindi mo natapos? So ano ba yung pwede kong maitulong sa'yo? Kailangan bang i-report na ito kay ma'am? Kailangan bang ipaalam kay ma'am itong mga hindi mo natapos para tingnan kung ano yung pwede nilang itulong sa'yo? So yun po yung mga pwede natin ding gawin. And then as parents, it's important talaga that you have to seek help or assistance when needed. Huwag pong magdalawang isip na humingi po ng tulong sa ating mga guro, sa mga ibang mga volunteers para sa ganon lalong nating matutulungan ang ating mga anak. So kung kinakailangan, kung talagang hindi na kaya, kinakailangan ipagbigay alam ito sa mga guro upang maipadala kaagad ang mga kinakailangang alalay. Kaya importante, you really have to communicate with the teachers. Ang mga teachers po naman natin, laging handa din po sila. They can do home visits where possible and where needed. Swerte nga natin na ngayon dahil marami na yung mga lugar na mababa na yung mga alert levels po nila. So makapasyal na yung mga teachers natin. Another one is pwede din direct phone call kung pwede kayong mag-text sa kanila para matawagan kayo. Importante din kasi na ipagpaalam sa kanila, ipaalam sa kanila kung ano yung mga tulong, yung assistance na kinakailangan natin or kinakailangan ng iyong mga anak at kinakailangan nyo din ninyo bilang learning facilitators dahil alam naman natin na parang bago lang yun na ginagawa ng kadamihan sa mga parents. Hindi ko lalahatin po dahil madami din sa ating mga parents, even pre-COVID, na talagang very much involved sila sa learning task ng kanilang mga anak kahit nung nag-aaral pa sila sa loob ng eskwelahan. So, various researches also proved home learning spaces improve motivation and learner achievement. And these are among the findings that social home environment, care and assistance, effective communication, freedom, and respect from parents and siblings are factors found in home learning environment that motivate learners to study at home. And practically, napag-usapan natin lahat ang mga yan kanina. Household tasks and rules integrated to home-based learning have positive effects on study motivation. And then the next one is the home provides a strong impact on children's development and academic performance through problem-based learning. So lahat ang mga to ay nakakatulong sa ating mga anak. So the other one is the physical conditions and design of learning environments have an impact on student performance and influence motivation, focus, and performance. And that's the very reason why you really have to remember the essentials in establishing the home learning space kasi napaka-importante ito sa pag-aaral ng ating mga anak. And since the family is an important source of strength and affection, motivational actions such as parental encouragement and support, as well as sibling support, have positive influences on students' academic performance and motivation. So again, I was so emphatic on all this a while back in the previous slides. So the Department of Education actually has adopted the Safe Home Learning Spaces initiative of Schools Division Office of Capiz. And this is actually offered to be replicated nationwide. DepEd Undersecretary Tonosito Umali, who is the who heads the External Partnership Service, in his message during the virtual launching of the Brigada Escuela in Western Visayas, said that the department is using this initiative as a model to advance the basic education learning continuity plan while face-to-face classes are still not allowed. The basic education learning continuity plan aims to provide quality distance learning using self-learning modules in digital, printed form, radio, television, and that of the internet. After all, to most of our families, the establishment actually of a learning space is never a new thing. Pero ngayon kasi na talagang, pero noon kasi, it's just a, kumbaga, pagdating sa oras, konti lang yung panahon na ang bata ay nasa bahay. Pero ngayon kasi, practically, yung bahay na, yun na yung paaralan ng ating mga anak. So kinakailangan sisiguraduhin natin na conducive po yung learning space ng ating mga bata. I'd like to share you some of the testimonials of our learners, particularly on the importance of the learning space in their lives, and may I read. Having a learning space in home gave off an essence of peace of mind while in the process of studying. So here are testimonials from our learners expressing how important to them is the establishment of the learning space. So from Ferdian, ang sabi niya is having a learning space at home gave off an essence of peace of mind while on the process of studying. So it enhances my pace and literally immerses me with my personal studies. I find it effective in a way that it becomes a viable part of my daily routine, such as when it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, my body and mind subconsciously inform me to go with my place and do my modules na. Sabi niya, it helps me cope and do work with ease alongside with practicality. Mula naman kay Marie Josephine, ang sabi niya, pag sa bahay po, pwede po akong humiga kapag napapagod na po. So exactly ito yung flexibility na pinag-usapan natin kanina, na kinakailangan aware tayo kung ano na yung nararamdaman ng mga bata para makatulong tayo sa kanila for their well-being. Mula naman kay Liam, ang sabi niya, the importance of having a learning space at home is you will be able to focus studying and answering the modules without disturbance, and I find it effective because I have my own learning space at home. And then, sabi naman ni Stella Marie, mabilis ko po natatapos ang gawain kasi nasa bahay na po lahat ang kailangan ko. So congratulations sa parents ni Stella Marie, kasi talagang yung isang essential ng establishment ng learning space ay talagang na-observe ito, that as much as possible all the learning materials ng bata ay kinakailangan within reach na po and made available. And then mula naman kay Angelo, ang sabi niya, komportable po, tapos natuturuan po ako ni nanay. So congratulations din sa nanay ni Angelo, kasi lagi pong may oras kayo para kay Angelo. At may oras kayo na tutulungan siya sa kanyang mga aralin. Pakinggan din natin si Angeli sa kanyang testimonial sa importance ng establishment of learning space.
Advantage po ng pag-aaral natin sa bahay ay nagkakaroon po tayo ng tinatawag na time management at mas napapahalagahan po natin ang ating kaligtasan ngayon ng pandemic.
Ako po bilang isang mag-aaral sa ika-6 na baitang ay malaki po ang naitutulong ng home learning space po ngayong may pandemya, sapagkat nade-develop at nai-improve po ang suporta po ng aking mga magulang at iba pang miyembro ng pamilya sa aking pag-aaral. Salamat po.
Okay, so you will note that no less than our learners recognize the importance of the establishment of learning spaces. So, my dear parents, my dear fellow teachers, let's help establish a learning environment that promotes well-being among our learners. And finally, let me end with this statement of our beloved Secretary, Leonor Magtolis Briones. Together, let us face the challenges of the new normal with the virtues of the old normal: courage, faith, adventure, and discovery. Together, we can ensure learning to continue. So with that, I say thank you so much to everyone. Let me share you the references that we made use in the preparation of this presentation.